Praise the Lord. My name is Evangelist Seth OMONDI Olale from Nairobi, Kenya. I want to talk today about a few things that are very important. I want to talk about World War III. I want to talk about bird flu, pandemic, and I want to talk about the coming global financial and economic collapse, and I want to talk about the rise of the beast or the antichrist as prophesied in the Bible in the book of Revelation chapter 13 and Revelation chapter 17. The Bible says that whatever has happened in the past will always repeat itself again. There is nothing new under the sun. According to the Bible and according to the writings of King Solomon that he wrote in the book of Ecclesiastes. King Solomon wrote that whatever has happened in the past will also happen again today and in the future. In the Bible, we see that the children of Israel went to Egypt, and Joseph rose up and he became the prime minister of Egypt. And the children of Israel went and joined him, and they were living in ancient Egypt. And during that time, there was a great famine in the entire world. And the Bible says that money failed. And when money failed, all the Egyptians, all the citizens of Egypt, they went to Pharaoh and Prime Minister of Egypt, Joseph, who was a Hebrew, and they handed all their livestock and they handed all their bodies, they handed themselves to the Prime Minister of Egypt, who was Joseph, who was exercising power on behalf of Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt. The Bible says in Genesis that money failed, and when money failed, the Egyptians could not get money to go and buy food. Therefore, they were starving, and they surrendered all their bodies. They surrendered themselves and all their livestock to Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. And it was Joseph who was managing and running the government of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So that happened in the past. And then after that, the famine did not stop. The famine continued, and the Egyptians went again to Pharaoh. They went again to Joseph, who was exercising authority on behalf of the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. So the Egyptians went again to Joseph, and they said that they had no livestock, and they handed over all their land. All the land that was in Egypt was handed over to Joseph so that Joseph could give them food to eat, because the Egyptians were very hungry. So they did a trade-off. All their land was confiscated by the king of Egypt, who directed Joseph to take all the land that was belonging to the Egyptians in exchange for food. So that happened in the past in the book of Genesis, and this is exactly what is going to happen in the last days under the New World Order. Under the New World Order, RDER, the citizens are going to be forced to hand over all their livestock and all their land. And finally, people are going to hand over all their bodies, and they are going to be controlled by the one world government. And the one world government is going to use AI to control and manipulate all humanity on the face of the earth. This is now where we are. Very soon, there's going to be a global economic collapse, whereby all the finances and all the currencies of the world are going to collapse, and they are going to be cancelled. And all the money in all the banks around the world are very soon going to be cancelled. So this is a message and a warning to all the billionaires and the rich multimillionaires and all the rich people, the upper middle class and the middle class. If you have got any money in the bank, whether you have got $1 billion or $2 billion or $1 million or $100,000, whether it is in American dollars or the British pound or the euro currency, or whether it is in Nigerian naira or the Kenyan shilling or the Zambian kwachu or the South African rand, a day is coming very soon when people are going to wake up and they are going to read breaking news around the world that all the banks around the world have suddenly collapsed, and all the money and bank deposits that people had saved their money in various banks across the world, all that money is going to be confiscated in one day under the New World RDER. That is what they call the Great Reset. And this is what is coming across the face of the earth very soon. Under the Great Reset, all global currencies, beginning with the Japanese yen and the German Deutschmark and the American dollar and the British pound and the euro, all physical money around the world, including the Kenya shilling, the Nigerian naira, and other currencies, including the Indian rupees, and all other major currencies around the world, are going to be abolished in one day, and they are going to confiscate all the money that are being held in the bank. This is now where the world is heading to as we enter the last 6 months of 2024, as we go into 2025. This is what is called the Great Reset, that you are being told that you will own nothing and you will still be happy. Under the New World Order, the NWO, the one world government will be a government run by communists or communism. The fascists are the ones who are going to control the world. Many billionaires and multimillionaires around the world and many people who are in the upper middle class and all the middle class in America and around the world, they are going to lose all their money in the banks. I know this sounds stupid, I know it sounds crazy, but this is something I've known that is going to happen all the way from as far as 30 years ago. I have been waiting for the money crash, and money crash is now soon going to happen across the face of the earth. This is now what is going to happen around the world. They are going to crash all the global financial system, and all the banks across the world are going to be crushed. And they are going to bring in the central bank digital currency, which is a digital currency that they are going to give to all the people around the world using mobile phones and tokens and central bank digital currency that are going to be controlled by the central bank. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 47, verse 15 up to 16, we see that the Egyptians went and took their livestock, and they also surrendered themselves to Joseph so that Joseph could give them food in exchange, because there was a great famine across the entire land, including Egypt and the Promised Land. So they handed over themselves, their bodies, and they also handed over all their livestock to Joseph and the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, according to the Bible in the book of chapter 47, verse 16, Genesis chapter 47, verse 15, and verse 16. And also, after that, there was still famine in the land of Egypt. And according to the Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 47, verse 18 and 22, they were still hungry, and they went back to Joseph, and they handed over all their land. All the land that the Egyptians, that the people of Egypt owned, was handed over to Joseph, who was exercising authority on behalf of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So people traded all their land in exchange for food. Because people could not starve, they handed over all their land, all their livestock, and even they handed over themselves, and they became slaves to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So these are the things that are going to happen again in the last days. Whatever happened in Egypt is going to happen again in the world, even in these last days. And as I told you before in my earlier videos, that the land of America is the present-day Egypt. America is not only Babylon, America is not only Sodom and Gomorrah, but America is also Egypt. The land of Egypt means the land of bondage, or the land of slavery. And the Hebrew Israelites, the black Americans, they have been held bondage in the United States for over 400 years, since the year 1619, when they were taken as slaves from Africa, and they have spent over 400 years until 2019. And now God is planning to bring down Egypt, or bring down Babylon, and then the Hebrew Israelites, God is going to gather them back to their land in the Middle East, in Israel. The people who are occupying the land of Israel today, those are the false Ashkenazi Jews. The original Hebrews are the ones, the blacks who are scattered all across the world, and the Africans who are living in the sub-Sahara of Africa, especially the Bantus and the Negroes of West Africa, and the Bantus who are found in Congo, DRC Congo, East Africa, Southern Africa. Those are the original Hebrew Israelites. So even as America is about to collapse, whatever happened in the last, during the days of Pharaoh in ancient Egypt, is going to be replicated again in these last days. There is a coming global economic crash, and people are going to become slaves overnight. And people are going to surrender to be people under the New World Order. It is going to be a communist one world government. And the New World Order, they are going to confiscate all the land that people have in private hands. All the land that people have, whether you've bought it, or whether you have inherited it from your father or from your grandparents, all that land that you've inherited from your parents, from your mother, or from your father, or from your relatives, all that land is going to be confiscated under the New World Order, and they're going to do it through the United Nations and through the one world government that is now going to come into power starting 2025 as we go into 2026. So this is now what is coming upon the world. They are going to force people to pay tax on all the land that they own, whether it is private property or land that you inherited and stolen. This is part of the New World Order. And that is what was also included in the 2024 finance bill that was being forced through the throats of Kenyans by the World Bank, the IMF, and the New World Order, the one world government that is now coming upon the world. So these are the things that are going to happen across the world. People are going to lose all their land. It is going to be confiscated. People are going to be forced to pay tax on their land. And if you cannot pay that tax, it is going to be confiscated and it is going to be handed over to the United Nations and the one world government that is going to be run by the antichrist and the beast, whom I have already identified to you is none other than Barack Hussein Obama. He is the one that is going to run the New World Order and the one world government under the one world government that is specified in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, Revelation chapter 17. So once the global economy collapses, there's going to be famine across the world. And people are going to be forced to hand over their wealth, their properties, and their land in exchange for food. It is only the United Nations and big organizations like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other Western NGOs who are going to have the authority to hand over food across the world using global international bodies like the World Food Program. These are the people who are going to run the world. The Bill Gates and the Illuminati and the Freema ASONS. Those are the people who are going to run the world very soon under the New World Order. How you may ask yourself, how is there going to be a global famine so that people are going to starve and hand over all their property to the one world government that is going to be run by Obama? Right now, there's a new pandemic that is now coming into the world. It is called the bird flu pandemic. There is a new pandemic that is now coming across into the world. This pandemic is called the bird flu pandemic. It is a deadly pandemic, and if it has got over a 70% infection rate, in other words, if 100 people get it, over 70 people who get the virus are going to die. You bleed from your eyes, and it also infects your internal organs. This is even more deadly than the coronavirus. So this bird flu that is now breaking across the world, especially in America, it is now going to spread across the world. I believe that by the end of 2024, the World Health Organization is going to declare that the bird flu is an international pandemic. And we are going to see another lockdown across the world, beginning in America and across the world. And the bird flu is going to bring a global famine across the world. Because once this bird flu spreads across the World Health Organization and the United Nations and all governments across the world, they are going to be forced to ban milk from dairy cows is going to be banned across the world because this bird flu has now jumped from birds and chicken, and it has now affected dairy cattle and farms that host livestock in America and other parts of the world. And they are saying that this bird flu is not only infecting chicken and poultry, but it is also infecting cows, beef cows that produce and meat that we consume, and also dairy cattle that produce milk. So in short, beginning 2024 onwards, if this bird flu pandemic is not contained, we are going to see the World Health Organization, they are going to declare that all chicken across the world is going to be banned. You are no longer going to be able to buy chicken or poultry and eat it. At the same time, this bird flu is going to affect eggs. Therefore, eggs is also going to be banned across the world. And at the same time, since this bird flu has also jumped and affected cows, cattle, and dairy cows, you're no longer going to be able to buy beef or meat from your butchery. The World Health Organization is going to ban the sale of all beef across the world, and they're also going to ban milk across the world, because they're going to say that chicken, eggs, beef, and milk contain the bird flu virus or pandemic. So all this food that we eat, eggs, chicken, beef, and milk, all of these four are going to be banned. And this is going to cause a global famine across the world. All these are the plans of the New World, or the Illumina and the Frima, SONS. These are parts of the New World Order to depopulate the world through famine. So this is how they are going to control humanity. Remember what Henry Kissinger said. The late Dr. Henry Kissinger, the former foreign secretary of America under Richard Nixon. Kissinger said that by controlling food, you control human beings. And by controlling energy, you control nations. So by controlling food, you control human beings. And by controlling energy, you can control nations. And this is now where World War III comes in. Because the Illumina and the Frima, SOS, and the Illumina, TI, the list, and the elite, who are planning to bring in the antichrist, they are planning to bring in World War III in Europe, between Russia versus Ukraine and versus America and Europe, the NATO military alliance. And also they are going to start another World War III in the Middle East very soon, between the Ashkenazi, the Jews in Israel, the false Jews in Israel, and Palestinians versus Hamas versus Hezbollah versus Syria versus Lebanon, and this war is also going to be fought between Israel and Iran. And many other Arab countries are going to side with Palestinians and Hezbollah, and they are going to attack Israel. Many other Arab countries like Egypt, I believe Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, and United Arab Emirates, all those nations in the Middle East, they are going to attack Israel. And once this World War III begins in Europe and in Israel, most of the Arab oil refineries and the oil pipelines and all the shipping containers that transport oil and petrol and natural gas across the world, they are going to be destroyed and they are going to be disrupted. So there will be a big energy shortage across the world. So this is now how the Antichrist is going to rise to power. Remember, they have already abolished food. You're only going to be able to eat vegetables and things like meat that is grown in the laboratories by people like Bill Gates and other multinational corporations. And you're also be forced to eat bugs like crickets, worms, caterpillars, and other crickets, like other insects that have been dried in factories, and then they are going to crush them and they are going to mix them with GMOs. So the world is heading towards this crisis very soon.